All right, I'm going to get us started. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you all here. We're expecting more people to join, but I'm going to start with introducing myself. My name is Oyindamola Shuola, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of SprinNG. Unfortunately, Adedolapo, who is supposed to host today's session, can't join us. So Ibukun Wimsola Ogunyemi, who is the director of SprinNG, and I will be co-hosting today's session. I'm going to begin by reading through a few norms for today's session. Please use the comment box, which you're currently doing, to engage with us and respond to questions or just tell us how you're feeling throughout this session. Feel free to share things that are insightful to you in the chat as well. Now, you would also see a little Q&A box right beside the chat. The Q&A box is specifically for any questions you have about the fellowship. Please put your questions that you would like the panelists to answer or the SprinNG team to answer in the Q&A box. That way we can track it and make sure everybody gets a response, or try as much as possible to make sure everybody gets a response. If we don't get to your question, don't hesitate to email us after the event. Our email address is contact@spring.org. SprinNG is spelled with 2 N's. Today, we're only answering questions related to the fellowship. I know we have a lot of things, good things going on with SprinNG, but today is dedicated to the fellowship. If you have other questions, non-fellowship related, don't hesitate to send us an email and we'll respond to you as soon as possible. Just heads up, the application opens January 15, but our website is going to go under a little construction to make it more accessible and also more user-friendly between the end of today and Monday, January 15. But the application will be up and running by January 15. So if you try to access the website after this event or later this evening, it may not be accessible to you, but stay tuned. Follow us on all our social media platforms at SprinNG LM, and you will receive updates there about our websites, our new website rollout, as well as updates about the fellowship and other opportunities that SprinNG offers. Lastly, I want to encourage you that you will receive a survey tomorrow. So please, please, please fill out the survey about the event. Let us know how this event went for you and if you found it valuable. And also give us honest feedback. This will give us more insight on how to navigate upcoming events that SprinNG will have this year. Today's agenda, I am going to run through the fellowship briefly, what the fellowship is about for those who don't know, and I will introduce our panelists. Then I'll pass it on to Ibukun Bimsola Oguyemi, the SprinNG director, to ask the panelists the questions, and she'll turn it over to your questions in the Q&A box towards the end. Now, while the Q&A section that answers your own questions will be towards the end, don't hesitate to start popping your questions in that Q&A box now, and we'll start answering them as we can. Some will be reserved for the end, but we'll start answering as many questions as we can. So don't hesitate to start throwing them in the chat. So the SprinNG Writing Fellowship. The SprinNG Writing Fellowship is an intensive 6 weeks online mentorship program for developing Nigerian, Ghanaian, Liberian, and South African writers with great potential and willingness to learn. Last year, we had, I think it was our 7th or 8th cohort. I've lost count at this point. But we had our cohort, our largest cohort of, I think we started with 75 writers, if I'm correct. Ibukun, please correct me if I'm wrong. But this year we're expanding a little bit more and having the Liberian writers join us for this year. We're very excited about that. The eligibility requirement, the core eligibility requirement is this. It is open to writers ages 18 to 25 who have not published a book before, eBook or hard copy. And the SprinNG Writing Fellowship focuses on 6 genres of literature: poetry, fiction, nonfiction, book review, play, drama, and blogging. During the 6 weeks, mentees will be in contact with their mentors, sending them their works and getting reviews and commentaries. Mentors and mentees will aim to work on at least 1 piece of writing in their select journal per week. The medium of communication between mentors and mentees throughout the program will be via emails, phone calls, WhatsApp and text messages. I should say for that part of the communication, it's really up to you because we make this mentorship a very personalized experience. You get one mentor, and so it's a very personal experience, and you get to discuss with your mentor what's going to work best between you and the assigned mentor for the next 6 weeks. In addition, all mentees will be provided weekly airtime during the program so that you can afford to stay online when needed, to chat with your mentor about an activity or an assignment or anything needed to help you improve your writing. Application opens January 15 to April 15. I think we roll out the announcement of those that are selected mid-May, and then the program itself starts June 1, ends July 15. While we say the program is a 6 weeks program, we kind of leave it up to the mentors and mentees to decide how long they would need to be in the program, because some mentees finish in 4 weeks, some mentees finish in 5 weeks. So the 6 weeks is really a stretch to make sure all mentees have the full time needed to grow, depending on what works best for them, between them and their mentor. More information will be on our website, www.spring.org. Remember, our website will be down for 2 days and will be back up on Monday. I'm going to read the panelists' biographies now. I first want to say thank you so much for joining us, Damilola and Okpara Damien. Damilola Ruth Oyedeji is an educator and storyteller. Self-named Ariella, she expresses herself through poetry and other forms of writing. Damilola's story, Nature's Trick, was included in the Antwerp Writing Contest 2021 shortlist. Her poems have been published in Synchronized Chaos magazine and elsewhere. Her essay, Why I Write, is set for publication in the SprinNG Writing Fellowship 2023 anthology. She is certified in film and television production by KAP Film and Television Academy. She directed the winning plays at iFest 2022 and 2023 with the unique name of Ariella. She has been writing for several years on the Beautiful with Dami blog. She's a creative writing candidate at Missouri State University and the past fellow of the SprinNG Writing Fellowship. Welcome, Damilola.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And now I'm going to read Ugochukwu Damien Okpara's bio. Ugochukwu Damien Okpara is a Nigerian writer and poet. He's the author of the poetry collection In Gorgeous Display, published by Fordham University Press this past September, a 2023 Lambda Literary Fellow and an alumnus of Chimamanda Adichie's Popular Hibiscus Trust Creative Writing Workshop. His works appears or is forthcoming in Poetry Magazine, Poetry Wheels, The Master's Review, Low, The Republic, 14 Poems, Ruminate, The Pen Review, Salamander Magazine, and elsewhere. He's also the author of the poetry chapbook, I Know the Origin of My Tremor, Sundress Publications 2021. He was a contributory interviewer for Poetry in Africa in Dialogue and is currently an MFA poetry candidate in creative writing at the University of Mississippi. Welcome, Ugochukwu, and thanks for joining us. I'm going to pass it on to...
Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to pass it on to Ibuku at this point. Remember, everyone, use the Q&A box for your questions. Use the comment section to engage with us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Oyin, for that beautiful introduction and quick rundown. My name is Ibuku Obihemi. I am the director of SprinNG, and we'll be in charge of this panel session with our amazing panelists, Damilola Ruth Oyedeji and Ugochukwu Damien Okpara, who are both alumni of the SprinNG Writing Fellowship and who are also doing amazingly well in their different fields. We believe that these panel sessions would help potential applicants for this year's fellowship to gain valuable insights that will be useful in their application processes. So I'm going to start with Damilola first, who recently completed the SprinNG Writing Fellowship. Tell us about yourself, outside your bio, what's an interesting fun fact about you? What was your academic background like? What have you been up to since the fellowship?
Okay, thank you very much, Ibuku, and thank you so much, Oyi, for this opportunity. My undergrad was in English language and education. And one interesting fact about me, I would say I really love plantain. And you know, when in Yoruba, they'll bring yam for the bride. If they bring plantain for me, I'm very happy. Then after the fellowship, I have moved to the United States and I am currently pursuing a master's in English creative writing, track, poetry. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. I didn't know it
You're
was
welcome.
good. Well, sometimes people say we can see the connection between a previous experience and an ongoing experience, but we'll come back to that much.
Thank you.
Ogochukwu, I'm coming to you. So I won't entirely say take us through like a quick rundown of your background because I feel like your biography already gives us like a summation of where you're coming from and where you're currently at. But then my question will be, you were a fellow in the second cohort of the SprinNG Writing Fellowship over 5 years ago. And a lot has changed in your biography since then. We can see the growth, we can see the journey. So tell us about your most significant accomplishment since completing the fellowship.
All right, so thank you. I'd like to begin first by saying thank you to you and Oyin for organizing this. It's always a pleasure to get to give back to SprinNG, to the SprinNG community. And it's been I think like close to 6 years since the fellowship. And I remember like sort of like being overwhelmingly anxious when I applied and feeling out of like place that I wouldn't be able to meet the expectations of the fellowship or that of my mentor. But then recently, I think last week I was looking at, I was trying to Google to see my first bio. I think the website is outdated. But it was the kind of bio that reads when he's not writing, he's listening to this and that. And looking at my current bio now, it's been a lot. I've achieved like quite a lot. And what I consider my most significant achievements is like getting into Purple Hibiscus workshop by Adichie, publishing my first book, and then getting into the MFA Creative Writing program. But I would say the Purple Hibiscus is the most significant because I got into that at the next year after I was done with the fellowship. And that was like my first year of actively writing prose. And I give all like thanks to the SprinNG resources because like I remember like there were folders that had like short stories from Koinsola, Onyin, and lots of writers. And that was like very foundational in me thinking about like how to navigate craft in like prose writing.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Do you still do this and that when you're not writing?
No. There's no for that again.
Thanks for sharing that. So Damilola, what inspired you to apply for the fellowship? How did you learn about the fellowship and what inspired you to apply?
Okay. I think I can't remember the details very clearly, but I know that I have known about SprinNG for since 2020, and that was during my youth service year. It was also during the pandemic, so we were on lockdown. And you know, during the lockdown, there were lots of messages going on online that this is the moment for you to seize the opportunity to improve on your craft and you know all of that. So I think I was making research about writing community in the country and how to just develop that craft. And as I didn't even know so many things that I know now. So that's how I found out about SprinNG. And then I found out about the SprinNG's Women Author Prize. So I think as then I was thinking I was going to write something for that or apply for the fellowship, but I can't remember if I did apply for the fellowship, but I didn't write anything. But then I was subscribed to the newsletter. So since then I used to get SprinNG's newsletter like every time it's sent. So how I found out about the fellowship I was part of was when the email came in and I saw that the fellowship application was open, and I was already processing my master's in writing. So I said, okay, this is an opportunity for me to, learn a few things before I come to the United States for my master's. So that was what made me apply last year.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So
Yeah.
I'll use this opportunity to say that if you've not subscribed to our newsletter, this is your reminder to do so. You get
Yes.
and information about the opportunities opening up at SprinNG for the year, for the month, and all through. So you want to be the first person to hear what's popping. So if you've not subscribed, go to our website, www.spring.org, to subscribe to our newsletter. So Ugochukwu, I'm going to come back to you. You know how I said we can already see where you're coming from and we don't want to dig into that. But we kind of have to dig just a tiny little bit. So you know how some people say that when you have a background in English or in literature or that kind of thing, it sort of tells you that you are the best fit or the right fit for African writing or literature in quotes. So I'm not sure if that also applies to you. What's your undergraduate background like in Nigeria? How did you know you were going to write? You're going to become a writer. What was the journey like for you?
So I studied human anatomy, so totally different from what I'm doing now. And yeah, and it's interesting that I used to be in the art class, and then my parents found out and switched me to the science. And yeah, initially because I wanted to study like law or like accounting, but then it's interesting. I sometimes joke that perhaps the universe uses me to like teach my parents a lesson on why you shouldn't influence your child's career path, because I'm back to the arts now. But I sort of like well, I think like I understand where their anxiety is sort of like coming from, in the fact that like with the sciences, the career path is like sort of like streamlined, but with humanities is not that very well streamlined. And that was like a major decision that I had to like make while I was when I decided I wanted to apply for the MFA program.
Oh, great. So have you always known that you were going to become a writer and you were just doing the sciences to maybe appease your parents? Or at what point did it occur to you that, hi, Ugochukwu, I'm going to become an amazing writer?
So the thing is that like, so in my secondary school, it was like a big secondary school, and so the guys who like took first thought, they read books, they stole books from each other, they wrote stories, and then they invented like sci-fi speculative fiction about like the school getting haunted and all of that. And I wasn't like in the first thought, and I felt like maybe if I start doing this, I'll probably get into first thought. And that was how I got interested in like reading. And then I wrote like a very like drama on I think the drama was on about our dining hall. Yeah. So and that's sort of like that began like an interest in like writing, but I never thought of like writing as something that you could solely do. I felt like it was something as it's like a side gig.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was after I finished like secondary school, and then and I was active on Facebook, you know, where we could like post poems and all of that. And I think I came across a sponsored post or something from SprinNG, and then I applied. And when I got in, it was from after the fellowship that I actively began writing.
Oh, wow, nice. Do you mind telling us who your mentor was so that we can shout out to him more?
Yeah, Lucas.
Oh, hi, Lucas. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Damilola, we currently SprinNG Fellowship started with, we have 7 cohorts, and this year's cohort will be the 8th cohort. And the number of applications we receive per year has grown into a large number, and we now receive over 1,000 applications per year. So despite knowing how large our applicant pool was, did you like have any anxieties or doubts about your potential to become a fellow?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's trying to put themselves out there for the first time would definitely feel anxious or insecure about certain things. And like Ugochukwu said before, I had this whole fear about what if I'm not able to measure up? What if I don't get chosen and all of that? But then what if I get chosen? So I mean, for me, what came to my mind was the worst that would happen is that I'll get rejected. And as of then, I'd already gotten my admission, but I was still looking for funding and all of that. So if I got rejected, at least my admission will not be rejected or taken away from me. So that was my mindset. So I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So whatever happens, happens. So yeah, I was anxious. I felt insecure, but I still did it anyway.
Was it your first time applying for the fellowship?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I can't really remember if I applied in 2020. I don't think so. Because I had the intention of applying. So yeah, I think 2023 was my first time applying.
Amazing. We've had fellows in the past who have applied a couple of times and they didn't back down because of rejections and they kept going for it. And it's amazing to see how everybody's journey and stories are different in coming to this things.
Yeah.
Ugochukwu, I am back. So in 2023, you served as a mentor in the SprinNG Writing Fellowship. And what made you return to serve? Because it wasn't your first year of serving. What kept you consistent and committed to SprinNG as a mentor?
So I would say, like, simply, I just wanted to give back to the community because I hold the SprinNG Fellowship is like very foundational to my writing. And I felt like without, if I didn't get into the fellowship, I wouldn't have like taken a bold step into with my writing. And another thing is that like, I think also like as a queer person, I also wanted to like, to also like be there for like other like budding queer writers who might want to like apply. Because whenever I make an application, I always like look at the mentor list or like the faculty list to be sure that there is someone who might perhaps like understand the weight of my experiences and understand where my work is coming from.
Great. So what has that experience been like? Do you feel like you are getting enough representation, if that makes sense, with seeing mentees like that?
Yeah, because like my past two mentees, their work sort of like explore like queer writing, totally different from mine. But at least I have like resources. I know like books to like point them to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Before I let you go for a few minutes, I know that a lot of fellows have anxieties about being paired with mentors or writers within the literary community that they probably knew from afar or don't know so closely. Having experienced both sides of the coin, being a mentee and also being a mentor, what insights can you provide as a mentor to help alleviate concerns that people have or potential applicants have about being in that kind of situation?
So I think like the anxieties are like very valid. I had mine. And that was like my first fellowship, writing fellowship as a whole. So like I felt like very anxious, like engaging with like Lucas and everything. But then what I've come to realize, like being a mentee and also like being a mentor, is like the SprinNG theme, like always, like they're very meticulous with whosoever they pair you with. And I say this like because when I was paired with Lucas, I was still like in studying human anatomy, and most of my writing sort of like reflected the idea of like biomedical science. And I think I was writing a poem titled like Cadaver Room. And Lucas was also doing a work whereby he sort of like blends like medicine and poetry. And that was like very like that was a learning like process in how he sort of like merges like the two fields. So I would say that just you don't need to like be anxious because like the team will SprinNG team will like pair you with someone who understands your work and who is like very patient. Like all the mentors are like very patient. You understand that like writing is a process, and you don't just become a 5-star writer in a day.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. So Damola, let's talk about your anxiety and experience. That's if you had any. How was the experience as a mentee? I know that your cohort, we accepted 77 mentees, fellows into the program, and 65 completed the fellowship. And I know there can be a lot of anxiety around adapting to an online group of 77 other African writers. What was most valuable in helping you to settle in, and what was your experience generally as a mentee in that cohort?
I'll start with what was vital. It was for me, what helped me to settle in was the orientation that we did at the beginning of the fellowship. Because I mean, after I got accepted, and there was also this anxiety of what if I'm not able to measure up? You know, what if I drop out after 3 weeks? What if I'm unable to, write effectively. What if I write something and my mentor is like, this is the most terrible poem I've read in my life? So there was all of that. And then I attended the orientation, and I heard Oyin speak, and she was just very simple and clear and sincere. And it was just like, we just want you to put in your best efforts. Nobody is trying to make you become Chimamanda like the next day or after 6 weeks. And then she mentioned something about how some people will see instant growth. Some people will see their growth as time goes on. And so that kind of helped me settle down and just calm down and just, try intend that I'm going to give my best, but not kill myself or with the anxiety or fear that I'm not going to be able to measure up. And then the fact that the group chat had rules and regulations governing it. So I didn't have to bother about anybody sending unnecessary messages or something like that. That would make it very annoying to be a part of that group chat. So for me, those were the two things that really, really helped me.
Okay, so what would you say was the most challenging aspect of the fellowship? Because I know it's a rigorous program that requires it to be available as much as possible. So what would you say was the most challenging aspect, and what was the most meaningful support that you received?
For me, the most challenging part would be that would be on my part. And it was time, because when I did the fellowship, I was very busy. I was a teacher, and I was teaching in like one of the best schools in Niger State. So I was like really busy. I was playing basketball and I was doing fashion designing. Then I was doing the fellowship also. So usually in my free time, what I do if I'm not reading something, I am watching a movie or something. So the extra time I used to have to watch movies and all of that, I had to like convert it to doing the fellowship and all of that. So for me, it was just the time, but my mentor was very understanding, and it was I don't know, it was just so, everything just worked out well despite the time being an issue. Then the support, a meaningful support I got, I mean, the weekly airtimes came in handy. At my place of work, I had access to Wi-Fi. So sometimes I usually forget to subscribe or something. So when I forget to subscribe and I'm not at my place of work, and I know that I have 500 naira airtime somewhere, it just helps me to like make data and do all the things I needed to do. And the fact that we had this manual, oh God, I feel like the manual is like, it is so wonderful. It is so well put together. And the number of resources that you get from the manual, it's amazing. So those two things for me, like, were really, really meaningful in helping me just, put myself together.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That feedback is amazing. We appreciate that, even though we've received a couple of feedbacks about how voluminous the manual can be, and we are also looking forward to reorganizing that to ensure that applicants don't feel, or fellows don't feel overwhelmed by the content in the manual. So thank you for sharing. Ugochukwu, I know you've had a couple of mentees in the past. What mentee would you say had a challenge that stood out most for you, and how did you help that mentee to overcome that challenge?
So I think it was like the second mentee I got, like had I think was more about like feeling that their work wasn't like where it's meant to be, which is sort of like understandable. I had to like make them understand that I experienced something like that during my formative years of like writing. And it's still like trying to also like impact the same knowledge of like writing as a process. You might see like an instance growth, like Damilola said, or the growth could be like more progressive or like stretched out of time. But the thing I made them understand is that writing is a process. Like there are some works that I've written that I wrote like 5 years ago that I can't stand now. There are works that I wrote like 4 years ago that I can at least look at the title. There are works that I wrote 3 years ago that I can like stomach to like read. So I sort of like make them begin to think of like their writing in terms of like writerly age. So for instance, I think I think like since I actively started writing, I would say that I'm like 6-year-old writer. So I sort of give myself lots of like grace. And there are some writers that I admire, for instance, like Tejuku, and I feel like he's very profound. And I'm like, my nonfiction hasn't gotten to that level, but I understand the fact that he has been writing for like perhaps like more than 10 years. And so I'm like, yeah. So sometimes I give myself the grace, like, oh, you're still like in your crawling stage. You might probably get to the working stage much later. So making them understand that it's all a process. Just show up, do the work, put in the efforts, you'll be fine.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So now that you're pursuing an MFA program, do you think that the experience the SprinNG Writing Fellowship offers is close enough to give a writer a taste of what being an MFA student is like?
So I'd say it's very different, but like the MFA offers like a workshop experience whereby you're in a round table with 12 other students and a professor, and they sort of like give you feedback. And so sometimes you get feedback from people who don't understand your work, which isn't very helpful. But with the SprinNG Fellowship, is like more intimate, like you're working closely with a mentor, which I think is like very beneficial for like a budding writer. Unlike when you're starting out, unlike when you're just thrown into like a workshop space, you might have like lots of anxiety and feeling that your work is like trash when you get like feedbacks and all of that. But I feel like where the SprinNG Fellowship like mirrors the MFA experience is like when you get to your dissertation stage, because I'm currently working on my dissertation and I'm working closely with my mentor who has read like all the poems that I've written. And so the feedbacks are like very well tailored. And we're also like thinking about like different aspects of like, you should submit this to like this publication. What do you want to do with your What do you want to do with your degree? So there's, so that's where like the experience like mirrors, which I think, so I would say like the SprinNG Fellowship is more like, you're working on like your dissertation. Let's say the 4 poems that you produce like during the 4 weeks of the writing.
Thanks for sharing that. So I'll go to Damlola now with my final questions, and then I'll come back to Chuko with my final question. Damlola, after completing the SprinNG Writing Fellowship, you were a recipient of the SprinNG Advancement Fellowship, which is another fellowship that we run at SprinNG. So you got the SAF scholarship. Can you tell us what the program is about and maybe describe your experience in it? Did it prepare you for anything in terms of your MFA that you're currently pursuing at the moment?
Yes. So I think that the SAF is about career positioning, and that's like one thing that I really learned about just being in that fellowship. My favorite part of the lessons was the one about interviews and asking interview questions and how to conduct an interview, because currently I alongside my master's, I also work as a public relations officer, and sometimes I have to conduct interviews for people. And before now, I have never been someone who conducted interviews. I've always been the one receiving the interviews, being interviewed. So just being a part of that fellowship, like, kind of helped me to know, okay, this is how I should come up with my questions. This is how I should ask my questions. And, it just made me not feel totally left alone or totally oblivious of what to do. So for me, that was like giving me a very solid foundation to begin, and something that is really helping me in my at my job right now. There's also the fact that at the SCF Fellowship, you learn how to, edit your resume, write your cover letters, and all of those things are like very, very important as writers, to just make sure that you have the right resources to put yourself out there.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing that, having the right resources yourself out there. So final question for you. What advice would you give to writers or potential applicants who are eager to learn but are not very sure if they would like to apply for the fellowship or not?
What advice would I give to you? I would say that just do it. Let 2024 or other years be the year where you do it despite being afraid. One of my favorite poems by Lucille Clifton is "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" And one of the lines in the poem, two of the lines in the poem says, "With my one hand holding tight my other hand." So it's like, I am afraid, I am anxious about everything, but I will hold my hand and I will do what I have to do. So you have to celebrate with me because I'm going to make progress. So with your one hand holding tight to your other hand, put in that application, submit it. The worst that would happen is you'll be rejected. And even if you are, it means you've gotten another opportunity to, improve upon your writing, or there's somewhere else for you to, that you can also grow. But the best thing that could also happen is that you get accepted and you can never tell. So put in your best, submit a sincere and clear and simple application, and just go for it.
Okay, last question B. We'd like to shout out to our mentors because they do awesome work. It's a lot of dedication and service that they do at no cost. So would you mind sharing the name of your mentor? Just so we can.
Yes. My mentor, my wonderful mentor, who I am still in touch with, is Mr. Olumide Ojo.
Oh,
And it
nice.
was a wonderful experience being with him. It still helps me to review some of my poems. And when I have to write papers, it's still like a very good support.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Also, it was important that you share that because beyond the fellowship, you still get to maintain your relationship with your mentors. You guys can still keep in touch. Once in a while, say hello. Say, we've had people meet at important literary events and just say, oh, I finally met my mentor today. So it's an amazing. So if you're still applying, please apply as long as you are qualified. The eligibility requirements are actually important. So thank you for that. So Ugochukwu, final last two questions. I just want to say, I like to say that I'm a fan of people's work, and Ugochukwu Damian is one of those people whose work I'm a fan of. You've written amazing chapbooks, brilliant books, and I just want to say congratulations on your debut anthology in Gorgeous Display. So would you mind telling us a little bit about the anthology published by Fulham University Press? What inspired the book, and how can people access it, especially in Nigeria?
Yeah. So I wanted to write a book that explores the queer experience in a hostile environment, and not just about exploring examining the experience, but trying to see the way queer desire functions in that, and also looking at the ways hope manifests in the sense that because so much of living outside the spectrum of what society considers as normal is filled with hope and desire to be normal, to be this, to be accepted, and all of that. And but I was also interested in the ways to also subvert the power dynamics that occur in these kind of relationships, in the sense that when a queer person is lynched, the mob has so much of the power, the agency, and the queer person doesn't have much of an agency. But in the book, I sort of try to switch that up. By sort of imagining for instance, I think a perfect example is a painter working on a painting. So the painter goes to the painting. So much of the agency lies on the painter, but when he gets to the museum, the agency is thwarted. And it sort of made me begin to think about the title in the sense that what does it mean to be in gorgeous display despite being in the hands of the mob? So that's sort of finding beauty within violence and also hope. And thinking about where how to assess it in Nigeria, it's been so difficult because I feel the problem is the retail price in the US is $16. And for it to go back to Nigeria, it has to sell for instance at least from 10K, which isn't very feasible. Yeah. So I feel the only option, there are eBooks available if you use Kindle or I think on one of those ebook sites. But I'll see if there's a way to get that in Nigeria.
Thanks for sharing that. I actually have a copy of In Gorgeous Display, but PhD hasn't allowed me to read anything other than PhD text. So, but then maybe somehow we'll come to that. But thanks for sharing that. So your final question is, just looking back at your impressive growth, how much you've achieved and done in the past 5 years, if you could give your younger writer self a piece of advice about the journey, what would it be and why would that be?
I think it will be something in the line of like writing is like a process. Show up, write the shitty prompts, write whatever you want to write. You're going to like improve. There's no way for you to improve without like practicing. And I think like my younger self didn't like learn that lesson because I was interested in like multiple genres like fiction, but I was scared because like I felt like my fiction was like very trash. But which is understandable. Like I started out trash and then I started out writing like and then I wrote like a good fiction and then I struggled again. So like it's all like a process. And but then I was just shying away and then I just stayed to poetry because like poetry just people always see it as like, oh, you're doing this cool thing. We don't need to like investigate to see if you're writing like shitty poems or not. Yeah. So like I'll just say just do whatever you have to do, like show up right. You're going to like improve with time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Damtola. Thank you, Gochoko, for this
Oh,
amazing
welcome.
night. This has
Yeah.
been really, really interesting. Before I pass it to Oyin to take it over with the Q&As and other announcements that needs to be shared, I just want to drop one or two things to say that the application for this year's fellowship opens on Monday, anytime from Monday, possibly from 7 a.m. and stuff. The application will be open for people to apply. It's only open to writers in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Liberia, which we have expanded to this year. Tips on how to submit a better application: just give it your best. Give it your absolute best. Don't write as if you are writing for something that you're not passionate about. Throw your entire weight behind it, because as you are applying, other people are applying and hoping to get the same spot, and we have limited spots based on the available number of mentors we have and other factors that we can begin to get into right now. And I also want to say that follow the not essentially follow the prompts, but the prompts are there to guide you, but follow the instructions. If you are required to write 500 words, don't write 1,000. It's not a space where you have to prove anything. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to show that this is something that you want, and you are showing the desire to get it because you are submitting something of quality. Because I said I'm going to share one or two tips is the second one. So now I'm going to pass it to Oyin to take it from here. So thank you guys so much for your time. It's been amazing having you here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Awesome. It was a deep pleasure just listening to you, Damilola and Ogochukwu. I should say, when Konya and I started this fellowship, part of the reason was because I don't know if you know, in Nigeria, there is no MFA program there right now. And even for our undergrad, we went to high school together, by the way, for those who don't know. Konya is a co-founder, and we went to high school together. When we were going to university, like, of course, our African parents and family members were like, no, you can't study writing. So we ended up studying different things. And then second year of my university level, when I came here, I was like, even if we can't like start an MFA program, we can at least do something. And interestingly, this year, Koinsola and I will be graduating with our MFA degrees, finally.
Amazing.
So it's a full circle moment for us, even here at SprinNG. And we're going through the journey, even with our fellows. So it's not that we're like far off and away from you. And one of the things I love about the program is like there's nobody like eye off and away from you. We're all acceptable. It's all a community. We all love each other and we're all there for each other. So just thank you so much for being here today. I tried as much as possible to answer as many questions in the Q&A box, but for the panelists, if you have to hop off and go, please feel free to. I will be answering the questions in clusters. A couple of people have asked tips for successful applications. I'm going to paraphrase part of what eBook said. Follow the instructions. A lot of applications are declined because people don't follow instructions. We provide as much details in the application so that you can know exactly what to write and how to answer it. So follow the instructions. We actually cut down one question from the application this year, so you have like fewer questions to answer, and we also reduced the word limit, so it's like less stressful for people that are interested in applying. Second thing is edit your answers. you have a lot of time between when the application opens and when it closes for you to edit your answers. Don't submit poorly edited essays. And also be honest, please do not lie in your application, because we use your application to determine who would be a right fit mentor for you. So if you're lying in your application, you're not doing yourself any service, any good service. A couple of people asked why we have an age limit to the application. We get thousands of applications at this point for a lot of our programs, and so it's like we really can't read that many before we have to respond by, like, if we keep the age if we keep it without an age limit, like there'll be too many applications, and so it's like we have to focus on a cluster and group of people. However, we have a second program which Damilola participated in, named the SprinNG Advancement Fellowship. That's open to anybody. And the SprinNG Advancement Fellowship, last year, we customized it, and even this year, we'll continue with the customization. We customized it in such a way that it prepares you for both a career in anything you want to pursue and also an academic pursuit in the literary field. So if you're interested in doing like MFAs or whatever, if you commit to the SprinNG Advancement Fellowship and you get in, then it will be able to help you through that. So that doesn't have an age limit. The application for the SprinNG Advancement Fellowship would open around June-ish this year, but keep an eye out on our social media and you get updates. Some people asked if I have been rejected once before, can I reapply? So far you meet the age limit again, or like the eligibility qualifications again for the new year, feel free to give it another shot. Unfortunately, we can't accept everybody because it's a lot of people applying into the program. So just make sure you put your full weight behind the application, as eBook has said. Let me see what other questions. Well, I think I covered most of it. Or someone asked, does being accepted into the fellowship make you a fellow, or is it the certification after? Of course, it's the certification after. You have to earn it. You have to earn that title. You have to earn that title, SprinNG Writing Fellowship. And at the end of the fellowship, it's not just the certification. We put together an anthology capturing the fellows' work, selected fellows' work, and we also put together a report capturing all the fellows' feedback. So if you go to our website, spring.org/writing-fellowship, you will see each year of the fellows' feedback, and you can read through their awesomeness. Let's see. Okay, I think I answered all the questions. Or what are the things you look out for in the writing sample? Number one thing we look out for is, did you follow the instructions? The instruction for the writing sample says 1-page writing sample, regardless of the journal that you're submitting in. So first, make sure you follow the instructions. Second, make sure your piece is well edited. You can write on any theme, topic, whatever it is you want to write about. That's up to you. And also just give it your best. We are not looking for, I should say this, people think they have to be experts and like very good in their writing to get into the SprinNG Writing Fellowship. No, we meet you at where you are. And that's the reason why we have personalized mentorship, because our mentors can then give you like the direct meet. If you're at level A, your mentor, if you get in, your mentor will meet you at level A. If you're at level Z, your mentor will meet you there. So we read through your application to determine, okay, where is this mentee in their experience, and who can we pair them up with to boost them up a little bit more. Someone also asked, do they have to be published on multiple literary platforms to get in? No, so many of our fellows, they've never even published one piece on a literary platform. And part of the fellowship experience is we provide you a list of over 400, I think we're at 400 now, over 400 active literary platforms that you can submit your works to. So it's really an experience that helps build writers from ground up, if that's where you're starting, and help you continue your journey if you already started. I think we covered almost all the questions, or if not all, but if you have any other questions that wasn't covered during today's session, please send us an email at contact@spring.org. SprinNG is spelled with 2 N's, so it's contact@sprinng.org, and we'll respond to you as soon as possible. Remember, our website will be down until January 15. It will be back up with the application on it Follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, and stay up to date with SprinNG. Thanks for springing with us, and it was a pleasure having you today. Anything else, Ibuku?
Yes, before you go, I'm just taking a quick look at the Q&A, and I know you've covered a lot of the questions, but I think I just want to respond to one or two. And someone says this will be the third time I'll be applying for the SWF, and I really do want to ask what could make one's application rejected. I would say that what could make one's application rejected is doing things that would not help one's application to be accepted. So basically not following instructions, basically not putting in so much effort. And I would also want to say this. There is a part where you have to upload a writing sample. And I would say, just imagine this fellowship as graduating from high school and wanting to go to a university. You have the experience, the academic experience to come into a higher institution. You also have the zeal to want to go into the next step. Now, the thing is, do you have the what do you call it now? The documents that you submit for this program? Do you have, what are your grades? What does it look like? Is it the kind of grades that a school would be interested in taking a look at? So basically just to say that this is not the time where you go into your archive of writings that maybe one day you were eating and then an idea popped in your head and you wrote it down, maybe 5 lines, 4 lines, and then you feel like, okay, SprinNG is asking me for something. I might as well just put this down. No, this is not the space where you put that down. This is the space where if you have quality materials in your archive, it's okay to dig back into them and bring them out. It is also the time where you sit down and say, I would want to submit my best work. I want to put my best foot forward. So basically, this is what it's about. Our questions for this year's application are pretty simple and straightforward. In fact, there are guidelines on what to write, how to write it, how many words to write. So basically just show that you are interested, that you want this, and you know when you want something, you go very hard for it. So I think that's just that. I think that's the only question that I wanted to respond to. So thank you.
Yeah, someone asked, sorry, more questions keep coming. What are social media handles? SprinNG LM, SprinNG LM, whichever platform you need to find us on, we're there. And are the works that have been published on literary magazines okay to submit for writing sample? Yes, so far you follow the instructions of 1-page, well-edited work. That's pretty good. But anyways, thank you so much, everybody. And I'm going to end this session now. Thank you so much, Damilola and Ugochukwu.
You're welcome.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye,
You
everybody.
too. Bye.
Bye.